Today I'm going to teach you one easy step to help you sound totally pro when you play time on the hi-hat cymbals. For starters, if you have some familiarity with jazz, you probably already have played a typical ride cymbal pattern like this. Now we want to take that exact same concept but play it on the hi-hat. If you play it closed, it sounds like this. Nothing changes about my approach with my hand. Here's where the magic really starts to happen. We're going to open the hi-hats just enough that they make an open sound where they sizzle together. And then on beats 2 and 4, I'm going to pinch with my left hand to make a short sound. Now that my left hand is down there, I could also use my left stick on the underside of the cymbal to play some ideas. Getting that left hand involved looks really cool, and it sounds great too. It'll have you looking and sounding professional in no time. Now that we've learned how to play time on the hi-hat, let's talk about the first style in the packet, the hi-hat 2-feel. It's called a 2-feel because the measure is divided into 2 beats. You'll probably notice if you're playing with a bass player that they'll do something similar, emphasizing beats 1 and 3. We're going to agree with that by lightly playing our bass drum, or feathering the bass drum. Here's what it sounds like when you put it all together. Now, a common problem is that students tend to play their bass drum too loud when they're feathering. So remember, it's pretty light, but also not too light. I like to think about it as playing the bass drum as loud as you can before you start to hear the articulation of the beater on the head. Here's an example of playing the bass drum too loudly. That might sound great as almost like a New Orleans marching style sound, but it's going to be a little bit too heavy for most swing styles. On the flip side, we can play the bass drum too lightly, in which case the music won't have enough low-end support to round out and balance the sound. Remember, we want the bass drum to blend into the sound of the hi-hat and the rest of the rhythm section, but it should also make sure we support it. So here's maybe what would happen if we play it too softly. As always, make sure to listen to lots of great source recordings to get an idea of how drummers would balance their sounds. And also realize it could change moment to moment or song to song. So don't get too stuck on one idea. Just make sure you have the dynamic independence between your limbs to be able to accommodate any sound that you're hearing. One great way to use that left hand underneath the hi-hat is when you're playing extreme up-tempo swing. Sometimes my right hand gets a little bit tired of playing spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, and I could just use a rest. So here's a great way to do that. We can actually split it up by playing right, left, right, right, left, right, right. It sounds like this. This is a great little hack that I love to use to take a rest if my hands start getting tired in the middle of a long, fast song. Here's a way that I might incorporate it with the whole kit. So next time you feel like you're running out of steam with your riding hand, just remember you can always use this hack to get you through. One thing that I had to learn the hard way over time and through acquiring a lot of equipment is that the actual cymbals themselves make a big difference in your ability to play an authentic hi-hat feel. These are some 13-inch Zildjian cymbals. They're vintage cymbals and they're pretty thin compared to most modern cymbals. And they're representative of what maybe Papa Joe Jones would have played. And if you don't know, Papa Joe Jones was the original inventor of keeping time on the hi-hat. So these really make it easier to get an authentic sound like he might have early on. Currently on my kit, I have some 15-inch funk cymbals, and I'll put up some K custom hybrid hats also to kind of give you an idea of maybe what more of a modern sound is like. So what do you think? Did you notice a big difference? I'm not a big fan of thicker hi-hat cymbals in general, so I don't really have anything that really represents a heavy rock sound in my collection. But hopefully you got an idea of how the thickness of the cymbals and size of the cymbals might affect the overall sound. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. It's also possible to play other styles than a 2-beat on the hi-hat. And one of the ways that I like to do that is just by feathering the bass drum on all 4 instead of just on the 1 and 3. Now we'll practice going between a 2 feel and a 4 feel so you can get more of a sense of how they differ. You might also have noticed that I actually kept my cymbals more open during the 4 feel. And that's another way that I really like to help propel an even feeling of the 4. Because if I choke the cymbals on the 2 and the 4, then it kind of interrupts the flow. I like to do it either all the way open like that, or sometimes I'll keep it closed like this. And you may have also seen some old videos of drummers playing on their hi-hat stand. And older hi-hat stands had this beautiful resonant quality to them. The stand itself was a musical instrument. And my hi-hat stand today isn't going to sound quite so nice, but they would play something kind of like this. When playing time on the hi-hat with your foot, there's actually a whole spectrum of sounds that you can make, from very tightly closed to all the way wide, splashy open. And I say it's a spectrum because there's really infinite possibilities within that. So depending on what the music's doing, you might want to bring a different sound. In recent years, I've really appreciated playing a little bit more relaxed sound with a little bit more width to it. I think that it helps the music relax and breathe a little bit more. But I used to play very tight all the time, always up on my toe, using the weight of my leg to make a choked sound, kind of like this. Although I still might play kind of a more tight sound like that if I'm playing conversationally between my hi-hat and my snare drum, like this. In general, I prefer a little bit more wide sound like this. Now this is achieved by being either way up in your toe or gradually moving back towards your heel. So here's the whole spectrum. Now I'm going to play a time feel with the tightly closed option, the kind of medium option, and then a wide open option. And you can decide for yourself if you think these might be sounds that you want to use for your playing. Of course, it's up to your musical imagination how you're going to apply these concepts, but one obvious choice is maybe you would play a wider sound if it's a slow tempo like a ballad, and maybe a little bit more tight sound if the music's really driving forward. Have fun imagining your own solutions, and I hope you got something out of these tips.